Welcome back to Rewiring Health. Now, if you're new here, I'm Kelly Kessler. I help high-achieving women recognize and heal from patterns of self-abandonment and unrelenting stress. And today, I want to talk about something that is so absolutely important to understand because it's something that I wish I knew nearly 15, 20 years ago. It would have saved me a lot of suffering. And what I want to talk about today is pain. I can't tell you how many people I've worked with who experience pain on a daily basis and are just absolutely frustrated and feel like they try everything and just are starting to feel almost like they have to live like this the rest of their life. And I can deeply, deeply empathize with so many people because I lived like this for years until I discovered how deeply intertwined my mind and my body were. And that was literally the root cause of why I was experiencing pain. Now, to give you a backstory, I'm a licensed physical therapist. I've been a physical therapist for 8 years, and I have worked with people with chronic pain and numerous conditions. And I can state that at the beginning of my career, I did not understand how deeply impactful emotions are on our pain. And this was something that through my own healing journey, I realized that this is literally the missing piece. This is why so many people experience pain, even though they continue to do all the mechanical things that they think would help them. And so I want to share a little bit about my story because if you're new to me or my podcast, you may have not heard this. And I want to share that in my 20s, I lived with an eating disorder for nearly 6 years. And the nature of my eating disorder was exercise dependence, combined with some bulimia habits. But it was primarily started out with exercising excessively. I mean, excessively. I knew every single calorie that it went into my body, and I would exercise every single calorie out plus some on a daily basis. I would be the person that would be outside running right in the beginning of the day, going to the gym after every meal, and then going back out at like midnight to run campus when I was in college at the time. I was running all hours of the day. And to tell you that I put my body through a lot that time is an understatement. And so as I healed from my eating disorder and stopped the behaviors, I didn't realize that I held on to a lot of the emotions that were fueling the eating disorder. And so near my mid-20s, after I had stopped the eating disorder behavior, I was experiencing chronic back pain. And I had back pain where it was on and off, but mostly on. And there would be times when I'd be driving to work and I would have to pull over and just get out and try to get back up to a standing position so that I could continue the drive because every little bump was excruciating. Getting out of bed was difficult. Finding a comfortable position to sleep in was difficult, which caused me not to sleep well, which just continued the whole cycle of experiencing the pain. And I lived like this for many, many years, well into my 30s. And throughout that whole time of me experiencing the chronic back pain, I went through physical therapy school for kind of a dual purpose. I love the human body and wanted to learn more about it, but I also am like, well, now I can help myself. I learn about it. I'll be able to relieve myself of this pain, come out and do all the things. Everything that if you've gone to physical therapy, you've probably been recommended, the stretching, the strengthening. I've had manipulations, stim, ice, heat, I mean, you name it. I was putting myself through everything I was learning. I'm like, okay, here, this is going to be the final key to relieving myself of back pain. And I would experience some relief for a short term, but then it would come right back. And it would come back for longer durations and sometimes be even more intense. And so it was this ebb and flow of feeling like, gosh, am I ever going to be rid of this? Like, I'm young. I have a lot of life to live. Like, it was scary to me at the time that I'm like thinking of my future life and what is it going to look like? Because being active was so deeply meaningful to me that I could not imagine my life without being active, being able to hike and walk and play with my future kids that I didn't have at the time. And all these things just fueled the fear that I was experiencing. And it brought me all the way to my mid-30s, still experiencing back pain. And it was at this point that I kind of hit this like rock bottom in my life. A lot of other things were going on. And this is right in the middle of the pandemic, and kind of everything was self-imploding in my life. And I felt like just kind of like at a place where I'm like, I can't live like this anymore. Like, I literally can't live like this anymore. And I remember just sitting on my floor and I'm like, I have to figure something out. I cannot live like this anymore. At that time, I had my first son. And so I watched this documentary at the time, and just don't even know how I found it, but it was talking about the mind-body connection. And there was just something after watching it that I'm like, that's it. There was like a deep knowing. I didn't know what that was or where it was coming from, but just I knew somewhere inside that that was truth. And so it led me down this whole path of really looking at how my mind and my body were connecting and what were the root causes of why I was experiencing this pain. And through a lot of self-reflection, self-awareness, a lot of my own healing journey of exploring different tools and avenues, I started to realize that my main theme, my emotional placement in my life was guilt. I lived so much of my life feeling guilty, like constantly feeling like I was not enough and that I had to give more. And if I didn't give more, I just felt like guilty for it. And that I had to make sure everybody in my life was okay. And I had to never say no. I had to always say yes to people. And if I ever had to say no, I feel this overwhelming guilt for it. And just, I started to see so clearly that I was living my whole life in guilt. And that had stemmed even to the point of when I was dealing with the eating disorder in my 20s. And at that time, I was playing field hockey, and my number one goal going to college was like, I'm going to be a starter as a freshman. Like, that was my number one goal. And I got to the point when I entered college, I was starting on the college team as a freshman. And that was a big deal. Like, that was a big deal because I mean, I literally worked so hard to get that starting position, and it meant so much to me. And as I was experiencing all these things with the eating disorder, like, I could not keep up with the demands of everything because the eating disorder trumped all. And so I actually had to give up my position at that time because I was just not in a healthy place. And so I carried this guilt for years of just feeling like, how could I do that? Like, I gave up like that dream, like I let myself down, and just carried so much deep-seated guilt, and just never gave myself any compassion of realizing like, you were going through some things, like that's why you had to make that decision. Like, but yet I held on to guilt. And so one thing that really opened my eyes up to realizing why I was having this pain was I got exposed to Louise Hayes, and she talks about the mind-body connection and how the emotions that we store, the things we hold on to, deeply, deeply impact the body. And I was starting to see this in my own life. And when she talks about guilt, guilt actually manifests as pain in our body. So for me, holding on to that guilt, I was literally holding on to the pain, and it was manifesting in my body as physical pain in my back. And it was only when I started to release that and I started to do some healing and I started to move my body and use my body in different ways that my pain actually started to subside. And something that I think is so important for us all to understand is that if you're experiencing pain or physical ailments and you feel like you're hitting this point of like, I'm trying all these things, I want you to explore your emotional state. What are you feeling? What is your body telling you? And this was the biggest revelation I can share about my own healing journey. And I want you to understand this, is that our body is our number one advocate. It wants us to heal. It wants to communicate with us. It is trying to protect us. And when I was experiencing the back pain, I had so much animosity towards my body because I thought it was letting me down. I thought it was just failing me. But yet here it was communicating with me, making me aware of something I need to address. So I didn't have to live the rest of my life suffering with what I was experiencing. And it was only when I did that deep dive and understanding that, and I started this practice of pandiculation. So I'll explain what that is. And that pandiculation is using the breath, releasing tension from within. It's almost like when a cat or dog wakes up in the morning, they do that yawn and they do a stretch. It's releasing tension from the nervous system. It's transitioning your nervous system from a state of fight, flight, or freeze, which we often see with stress, into a place of rest, digest, and restore. And so I started to connect with my body through that. I started to slow down. I started to listen to my body. And that was literally the catalyst for me getting to a place where I speak to you now and I have no back pain. And this is a practice that I have engaged with throughout many, many days. And it has held me in a position where I can do all the things that I dreamed of. I have two young boys I play with. I have done triathlons since the back pain. I have done road races. I lift lots of weight and I don't experience any of that pain anymore. And if you asked me back in my mid 20s, early 30s, if that would be possible, I would say absolutely not. So to go from that position where I felt completely hopeless and fearful of the pain to a place today where I feel so much more empowered in my own health journey has been a complete game changer. And so I want to speak to you as seeing both sides of it, not only as a physical therapist and not only as somebody who's experienced chronic back pain, but as someone who truly, truly has seen the power of the mind and body and how they can come together to heal and how we have this innate ability within our system to always heal. It's always moving us in a direction to heal. It's just what's blocking it. And for me, it was that guilt. I not only had the guilt of having to give up the field hockey team, but I also had the guilt of I put myself through this with all that exercise. And once I started to realize like I need to connect to my body, listen to it, move it in a way that is allowing me to get out of that sympathetic response back into a restful state and start to really give myself some compassion for everything that I've experienced. That literally became the catalyst for me not having any back pain and living a totally different life than I would be if I kept down the same path that I was going. So I want to share that for any of you who are listening, who maybe have been experiencing chronic pain or maybe experience constant tension, your shoulders are up by your ears and you just feel like you can't relax. Or maybe you get into bed and you feel like your body is just tense and you just like want to just allow yourself to release it, but you feel like it's just kind of like stuck in this pattern. Or maybe you're just getting like headaches and your neck just feels constantly tense. Whatever it is, I want to speak to you because I was in that position and I wish I knew then what I know now because it would have saved me a lot of suffering. So if this is you, I want to share with you that I just created a course to literally take you through your entire body for an inner release. And that's the name of it, is inner release, because it's not about using all the things external to us to change the way our body is reacting. It's about engaging the nervous system, getting to the root of it. The whole root of it is that we've been experiencing these low emotions. We've had a stress response for a long period of time, and our body's literally holding on to that tension to protect us. And so we have to teach our body a different way. And that's why we have to go from the inside out. And that has been the big catalyst for me to change my entire experience in life, to not feel like every day is just like I'm trying to get through it because of the pain. It's allowed me to move freely, feel like I have a flow in my body. And I am so, so grateful for everything that I've learned and how I've learned to release the body from the inside out. So if this resonates with you, I'm going to put the course into the show notes below. And I'm super excited to share with you that there's a coupon for the next week up until the 18th at midnight for you to get it at a discounted price. And this is such a big game changer if you are experiencing any kind of tension within your body. So I'm so grateful to share that. And I am so grateful for you spending your time with me today. And I really hope that if you are experiencing any of those physical ailments, that you realize that there's more to that. And there's more to what's going on deeper. And once we can understand our experiences and how our body's interpreting them and embodying them, that literally becomes the key to release everything. Again, thank you so much for being here, and I wish you a wonderful day.